Hello, everybody, and welcome. We're going to be talking about situational leadership. It's one of our strategies for a global economy. I think one of the rationales for leadership is the fact that managers really are a commodity, but leaders are in very short supply. That said, leadership discussed in isolation is somewhat of an empty message. That's because managers and leaders are really different entities, but they will occupy both positions. That said, we will discuss leadership separately here. And our focus is to provide a method that is actionable, known as situational management. But before we do that, let's look at some insights on leadership in the new millennium. What's out and what's in? What's out? Power by title or authority. I think today's modern leaders don't use the power of their title, but really power of influence and knowledge. They know the business, they know the market, they know the people, and they provide rationale as opposed to just using their authority. What else? The Lone Ranger. Siloed organizations and siloed individuals that only care about their own function are out. What we really need to be doing is cross-functional collaboration, working together, making all departments across the value chain add value and collaborate. What else is out? Focus on the urgent versus focus on the important. You know, it's so easy to get caught up in the urgent things that we do every day. And quite honestly, for most of us, we have more work than we can actually achieve. So it's really important that we spend time on the important. What would the important be? Improving your business process, solving business problems that help your people work better. It's very easy to firefight and focus on only those things that seem the most urgent, but we have to carve time out every day, every week, to focus on the things that are important as well. And quite honestly, some things just won't get done, but the important things do need to get focused upon. In the new millennium, leaders have conflict. Various parts of the organization have their own agendas, and this is natural. It's a natural tension that happens in business. Some ways of doing things is I win, you lose, and we burn bridges. But successful leaders solve problems, build bridges, and build something called coalition. People that trust them, and it will at least give them an open understanding of what they're trying to achieve and listen to what they're doing. You wonder why some leaders can get things done. It's because they've spent the time to build coalition between other partners and their peers and other leaders that will at least listen to their ideas and give them a fair shot. Burning bridges is not the way that things should happen. Status quo. We're in a world of change. Our world is changing, and change is done through initiative. And the status quo is just really not possible. Manager as an expert or manager as facilitator or coach. I know we have the tendency to want to be the expert, especially in the area that we were good at and we're comfortable. But leaders in the new millennium leave that behind and see themselves more as a facilitator and a coach. And even though you might be able to do that job better, you need to let people grow into that job. Facilitate and coach. It's no longer the need for you to be the expert. What your need is to create more other experts. In this world of change, this dynamic world of change, clear roles and responsibility and authority aren't always possible. When we're going through change, things will be unclear. Roles will be unclear. We will have ambiguity. If you're expecting everything to be perfectly defined, you're going to be disappointed. So dealing with ambiguity and change is something that we need to get comfortable and used to. It's all part of that dynamic. of change. The last is creating an environment of blame or an environment of learning. If we're in an environment of change, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to be at risk. We're going to try things that don't work. And how we respond to this has a lot to do with how much trust our people put into us. We should learn from our mistakes and create an environment of learning rather than an environment of blame. If we have good people and they're doing the best job they can, then let's learn from what happened and pass that on and move forwards and create a learning environment. Now I want to switch to our topic here, and that's something called situational management. One of the things that a lot of leaders and or managers do is they have one style or approach, and it usually is something that works for them. Situational leadership recognizes that there is no one management approach that will work universally for all of your employees. Now, I'm not talking about changing who you are or your personality, but I'm saying you might have to change your approach based upon the person. To best help your people, you may need to change how you go about it, because different people in different job capabilities require and need a different approach. So situational management helps us understand that and gives us a model that will deliver the best support and coaching that is appropriate for the employee and the job, and of course the organization. So let's look at situational management. It's a methodology that's simple but extremely effective, and it focuses on two things: the readiness of people to perform their job and the requirements of the job. In other words, is there compliance? Is there a lot of creativity? Is there a lot of flexibility? And so forth. So situational leadership is designed to enhance coaching and delegation. Now, it is optimally applied with your direct approach reports. So let's look at the two dimensions of situational leadership. The first is readiness. A manager must consider the readiness of their people. Readiness is the demonstrated ability to successfully execute a particular task or job functions. Readiness of an individual should be assessed prior to any delegation. You need to understand your people, and you need to understand where their skill sets are. And sometimes it's helpful to do a job breakdown and break a task down into individual activities so that you can more accurately qualify their readiness. Readiness falls in two extremes. Low readiness, which you would find with a new employee, no experience, underdeveloped skills, and quite honestly, low confidence. On the far other side of that is high readiness, a person that's been in the job for quite a while, has in-depth skills, and they're confident at what they do. The next dimension, of course, is mode. The different job requirements require a different approach to supervision, and we call this mode. On one side is command and control, environments that are autocratic because they need to be. I can think of the military, the police, maybe working in a biotech laboratory, emergency services. Those tend to be command and control. They're very directive. And I guess as an example, we could think of General George Patton on the command and control side. And it's command and control because it needs to be. On the other side of that is empowerment. Democratic, participatory. A good example would, of course, be King Arthur and the Round Table. Now, we can take these two dimensions and put them into a quad, where readiness is on the vertical axis and mode is on the horizontal axis. So we have high readiness and low readiness here, and we have command and control at the bottom with empowerment. And we'll show you how this would work and how you would recognize who your people are, how ready they are, how much empowerment or command and control is necessary for the job that they do. So let's look at each one. If we look at the top right quadrant, where I have an employee and their readiness is high. They're very seasoned, they've been in their job for a while, and that they are in an empowerment environment, which is basically says, look, you know the job, you know what you need to do, go do it, and let me know if you need help. This would be a good example of an empowerment environment. So what is your approach as a leader? That employee is not really looking for you to tell them what to do, but they are looking at you to facilitate, maybe move some obstacles that are in the way, and to collaborate with them, to brainstorm with them. And if they come into your office with a question or a problem, I really think that they want to solve it themselves, but they want to get some feedback and some other ideas, bounce some ideas off of you. So this is in the high readiness empowerment quadrant. Likewise, if I have a new employee working in an empowerment position, and yet their readiness is low, what is it that they need? What they need is coaching, and you can kind of coach them on the kinds of things that they then can go out and try to do for themselves. If they want to understand how to do something, you can show them how to do that so they can do that for themselves. If I treated somebody with low readiness in the same way that I would treat someone with high readiness, they would look at this as lack of leadership, because they really do need your help. Now let's look at the other side. The other side is on the command and control side. Let's assume that you have an employee that has some kind of a problem, maybe following the rules or following protocols or procedure. Their readiness is high and they're working in a command and control environment. What do they need? Okay, they know the job, but perhaps they need to understand why they need to follow policy. Your approach with that person is persuasion and rationale, letting them know why it is important to follow these particular protocols and rules and why that is important to the company. So we use persuasion, rationale for that. And in the final quadrant is where someone's readiness is low and they're in command and control. I'm thinking of somebody perhaps working at McDonald's, where they are very specific in how everything is done. And so in that approach, you're going to be very directive, and you're going to set their behavior and their outcome very, very specifically. You're going to tell them exactly how this is done and make sure that they're following those protocols. So you can see when you look at situational leadership, you have people with long experience or low experience. You have people that are working in a command and control environment, like a manufacturing plant where you're on an assembly line and you have to follow things exactly the way that they're planned. And then you have other environments. I can think of the sales environment, high-tech environment, and other companies where it's an empowerment environment. We hire people that can do the job. We train them and say, okay, go out there and get the work done. And they're self-starters and motivators, and they do this on their own. So depending on people's readiness and the environment that they work in, we have to change our approach. It doesn't mean that we change who we are, but we have to change how we approach people and how we can help them. You know, there really is no formula for managing and leading people, but considering the situation, readiness, and mode, and adapting your style and behavior has shown to be effective. So you could follow these 4 steps to assist you in this effort. The first thing you need to do is you need to know your employees so that you can analyze their level of readiness. You need to select the mode that this activity requires. You know, sometimes the particular job that they're doing would be command and control, and other times it could be empowerment. So you can change your approach based upon that. So determine your approach, manage the situation with the appropriate employee interactions, and you'll be giving them what they need and what the company needs for this particular job. I think if you can work in an empowerment environment, there is some advantage to that. some traditional management thinking is focused on the notion that power is a fixed commodity. If I have more, you have less. Thus, power is something that you might want to hold on to. When you do that, I think you make others without power feel powerless. And there's extensive research on this that suggests that when people feel powerful, your staff, they behave differently. And this is because people with more power believe that they can do more and they can influence the organization, and they take some pride in doing that. And there'll be greater effectiveness of the organization and satisfaction of the members. If you can empower your people, this would always be my first choice. Some studies from the University of Michigan have shown that when you keep power to yourself, it contracts. And I'm talking about the power to, let's say, make decisions. When you give power away, it expands. Because the more power your people have, the more power they will have to be doing their job. And it can be focused on moving the organization forward. Something to consider from Warren Bennis, a leadership expert. The most dangerous leadership myth is that leaders are born, that there is a genetic factor to this. This is crazy. It's not true. The opposite is true. Leaders are made rather than born. Thanks for your time.